So yeah, thank you so much for this, for actually thinking and creating space to so that these topics can be discussed. And I believe that all of us are educators in the room in the session today, and it would be great if some of us can just quickly write a few words in the chat that what is it that brings you to the session today. Just a little, maybe a minute, we can spend on a few
Yes, ma'am.
thoughts.
There's one
Yeah.
one Vivek Anand has said about teaching strategy, teaching and best utilization.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Teaching strategy for around these area of compassion. I would just request you to keep dissecting the topic. Okay, thank you for sharing that teaching strategy. What else brings you here? Maybe a few more volunteers. Okay, so I
Yeah,
think since
incorporating SEL along with my subject,
okay, incorporating
innovation in
SEL.
education.
Mm-hmm. All right, innovation is incorporating. That brings me to the point that integration. Beautiful. Thank you for thinking and bringing it to the session. One of the innovations is, of course, where everyone's talking about saying that how can we incorporate social emotional learning into different subject streams, not as a separate branch itself, not a subject field of study like that, but something that we inherently have been doing, but somewhere maybe in the process we lost. I'm just bringing a few scenarios, maybe opening up a little. Thank you for sharing your thoughts here. So once that helps us. I think you've already set out the norms, but like we always begin with saying that certain norms will help us, stay on track and utilize the time judiciously. So, like unmuting and of course, cameras on if they can be, that'll be great to connect. For a bulb, I think there's a question that you might have. Please park your question in the chat and use the hand raise or any signaling feature here when you would like to unmute in the session. So, as we do, we would love to hear you. Of course, chat is one option, it's always open. Utilize that to the full, use. And the next thing that I would really like to start with is setting an intention. So, we spoke about someone said that SEL integration. So here it is an opportunity for you to simply set an intention for yourself that I am here to facilitate, but you are here as a participant. Both of us are mutually trying to create meaning for this whole entire topic that we have in hand. Right. So my intention is to be fully present and of course to be able to help you take actions and implement the learning. Every time when I take a session, even I go back with a lot of insights and learnings. Right. So that propels me further to keep doing in a better way. All right. So you may just set an intention for yourself that you'll be an active listening. So it's like an expectation also that we'll be actively listening. We'll also be asking questions, and wherever it is required, we will clarify from the facilitator. All right. And the biggest promise that I think I would want from all of you here is that please do take action when you go back and try to implement whatever you can take back from the session. Try to implement, test it, and come back. We would be very happy to hear from you. If this works, does not work, what better can we find out together? Right. So, in the interest of children and of course ourselves as teachers. So I'll just give you 30 seconds maybe to quickly set an intention. If anybody would like to share any one or two responses here, what intention would you like to set for yourself?
Engaging classroom to
Okay,
absorb.
to absorb. That's interesting. Hang on to this idea. Yeah, absorb. Okay, 5 seconds more. To engage and absorb, maybe. So that's what we set for ourselves. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so as we move on,
There's one more, ma'am, to improve student participation in learning.
Oh yeah, interesting. So we are all always, so I really, I think the we all must acknowledge the kind of spirit teachers have or educators have to always think, how can I make my class better? How can I engage more students? How can I make my lessons more interesting? So this quest brings you here that even after your school hours, you are still spending some time here, and I really feel grateful that you are here and investing time, and we wish collectively that this goes to the students and of course the facilitator, the teacher in the class or the educator. I would really, I think it will help us. Let's just stay in the session. So once I was just looking at this topic here, and I would just say, what is the most striking word that stood out for me? So this GenNext students, one context is this, one context is what is compassion, one context is what might curiosity really mean. And when I look at this topic, when I say cultivating, so I was just asking myself just before the session, can we really cultivate? So what does cultivate mean here? The context is our classroom. The target audience or the recipient, so to say, would be our students. And the focal point that we all are learning, discussing in this session is compassion and curiosity. So before we dive into it, we need to unpack the little thing. And how are we unpacking? So I'll just bring your attention to one statement here, one statement. It says, which I read, which I always, resonate with and keep looking for evidences. So, since we talk about curiosity, and there's one thought here that children are curious by nature. So, this is a statement. So, do we agree, not agree? Are there any examples that you have to say that yes, they are curious, or to say no, they are not curious? Anybody who has any thoughts on it, that children are curious by nature? So, do we agree or we don't agree?
They are curious. Yeah.
It says that they are a yes or a no. You can quickly put that in the chat if
Yes,
you.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They are curious by nature.
Yes,
So,
Lata also says yes.
okay. They are curious. Fine. So, anybody also who thinks that maybe partially I agree. They are, but there are no
Darshan
evidences.
also says yes.
So, request you to, when you say yes, you
Darshan.
please also think about an evidence back from your classroom to think. We'll do a little more thinking here, right? So because so the framework is common for all, but the implementation will only happen if you, along with us in this time that we have together, try to think back to your classroom and come back with an example. When you say they are curious by nature, any examples that you have to quote? Anybody who would like to share anything? What's the evidence of it? Just think about an evidence. If you may just quickly write in the chat one evidence that they're curious. What makes you think that they're curious?
They can learn many concepts through nature.
Okay. So that would mean that they're observant, isn't it? So I would really like you to say, yes, they are observant and they can learn from nature. Any example that you have to cite here? We're just waiting. Okay, I believe that you are thinking about it. They're curious by nature. So if they're curious by nature, then I will put the question back on
Um,
you. Yeah.
yeah, the Vivekanand has said they are curious in the sense they turn up toys.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Kavita said they ask various questions regarding to the topic going on
Mm,
while teaching.
yeah. Okay. They ask various questions. Thank you. And yes,
They
turn up
learn
toys.
counting through nature. They can
Mm-hmm.
learn counting through nature.
Counting. Okay. Through nature, maybe you're trying to say by experience. We just, so all these responses are valuable, and I really appreciate that you are participating, because that is how the meaning will be integral to you. So, meaning making will happen. It's a cooperative process. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, turning up toys, an example, young children. Now, this makes me think, if you also, by what age you think that they stay curious? By up till what age? So, from asking question, I'm thinking, or turn up toys makes me think that they do it when they are toddlers, when they are, very, very young. Then I would really request you go back whatever class you teach, from
Till
that
8 years, they say.
till 8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Till 8 years they're more curious. After that, so yes, asking questions, we can do that, but how many children ask you questions above 8 years? How many questions per day? Why I'm asking this, because there's a huge data on this, that we stop asking after a certain age. But before that age, we keep asking loads of things. When we do turn up toys, when we are just trying to learn 5, 6, that kind of age, we do ask. Up till primary years, we can say that most of the questions are asked. After that, what happens is a wondering, right? After that, what happens to the question is what we really need to pay our attention. And hence, we say that let's cultivate curiosity. So, so it's there in already. We're just trying to cultivate. So, by that, I mean we are trying to point out at the environment in the classroom, maybe, if that's the space that we need to look at. All right. So, thank you so much for sharing this, your interest, your examples here. But do hang on with this idea: curiosity, questions, classroom. So, if being curious is to ask questions, then as a student, I am above 8 years. What happens to me when I do not ask questions? Right? So, what age group asks a lot of questions? We say 8 years, up till 8 maybe. After that, do they don't stay curious, or do they don't ask questions?
There are two comments about it. Their memory are now stable, like after 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another comment that schools influence the ability to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Schools influence the ability to ask questions. Yeah, maybe. So this is again a very startling observation and insight, that I as a teacher have always been trying that I make my lessons interesting, I make everything interesting so that the students learn. Now, when the tests happen, when I see that they are not engaged, so one way to talk about engagement is to ask questions, right? So if they don't ask questions, that means maybe there is less engagement. And thank you for sharing that schools do influence, but in what ways? So we are here today to see that how do I not influence, how do I believe that children are curious by nature, and we try to simply let them be, right? So we'll explore in the session what might be certain strategies that we can use in our lessons only. And if questioning is one big thing that makes you believe that someone is learning, why do we even question, right? So these are few things that I would just throw open on you, and this is one little visual which I really find very interesting when I think of children. And if you notice, all these are young children, primary years maybe. And then what happens when children are bigger? Can you imagine? Can you visualize a 10th grader or a 12th grader? Which picture, if I'm not highlighted, I've not really labeled the picture, but a 10th grader, a 12th grader, a 7th grader, right? So if you think, who can be, which stage can this person be? Right? So curiosity, spark, ideas. So if 8 years above might be grade 4, grade 5, just like that. Yeah, 10 years, grade 5. So, and then the second statement, this is the first thing that we were unpacking: curiosity. So, we learn that children are curious by nature, and we need to keep a note, or you can even keep a diary or anything, that you just remind yourself that they are curious. Now, how can I tap into their curiosity? Is the main focus area which will be there for today's session. How can I tap into their curiosity? They are curious by nature, and I don't need to really drill curiosity in them. They are curious. I just need to facilitate that curiosity comes out, right? And why do we even so okay, one last question on curiosity here. How many of you in the session are still curious to know things? Now curiosity can be about anything. How many of us feel curious? We are curious. We are driven by our own curiosity. If you say yes, I am, I'm not, just reflect.
Yeah, Vivekanand says yes.
Hmm.
Tarang says sometimes. Um, Lata says yes.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Vaishni has raised hands. Probably
Yes.
it's yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be?
And Girija says yes.
Okay. Can she unmute and share?
Um, yeah, I think they'll do it. Yes.
Okay. So, so yes, it's
Okay.
great. Hmm. Is she sharing?
No, I think she meant a yes, maybe. Yeah, for the
Okay, all
question.
right. Okay, okay, fantastic. That's all right. Thank you for sharing. So sometimes, yes, maybe. So we'll really explore that what happens. So can we assume that children are curious, but since we stop being children by age, if I say, that's also not a very rational, very logical assumption. But do stay curious. The very fact that you're here to know is, maybe I am assuming that that's your curiosity to see what else can I learn, what else can I find out, right? What might this session help me? So you believe it or not, but we do explore things and learn better when we are driven by our own curiosity. If anybody is forcing me to do something, I might really not be curious. But if someone enables me to be curiously explorative, I might really do wonders. I might. So I just, someone has to just trigger that spark, maybe. That's one thing we can talk about. We can stay with. So that's about curiosity. Now, if we change a little shift here to the second word in our session today, the topic, compassionate. Now, this statement simply says that human beings are born compassionate, right? They are born compassionate, and that's true. You can Google all these statements. Actually, come from a lot of people in the studies. So they are born compassionate. A yes or a no? Do you believe in it? Any examples again? In the chat, please write. Again with an evidence, please. So human beings are born
Children help their friends in distress.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Okay.
Yes, when a classmate drops a food, friends share.
Mm. Okay. They help, they share. So these are the evidences to see that we are born compassionate. All right.
They support for their peer group.
Yeah, they support. Lovely. These are great examples. So even this support makes me feel that they support in a very not healthy way as well, but they keep supporting. Right? The rationale, the discretion has to be brought to children that you do support, but you really need to see when it is not really healthy to support. So that kind of discretion is what we can do. But otherwise, like your examples say, so they help, they share, they support. This shows compassion. What about you as an individual? How do you think about yourself? Human beings, right? It's not children, it's human beings. Are we also compassionate?
And there were
I'm o-
three more comments.
okay.
If you
Okay.
have compassion, then you'll be driven and attain self attainment and dreams,
Mm-hmm.
increase their confidence level. Even today, we go out of our way to help a friend.
Hmm. We go our way to help a friend. Yes, as adults, we do try doing things. So yes, absolutely. But what might these are all examples where which makes us believe that all right, human beings are born compassionate. Yeah. So and the next slide that I have here is a very simple one again. So we can even think of ourselves that even everybody is compassionate, support, and they stay together. You see, so these pictures are like collaboration, supporting, leaders leading, and things like that. So stepping in for each other. Then the world really needs to be very harmonious, isn't it? That if I pull out your attention to see that what's happening in the society, what's happening in the world around us. These are two basic premise. Now very important for us to understand that that is one set of you know thoughts and ideas here, and then we see the reality checked. Though you did bring examples of students doing this, sharing, supporting, helping, we also going out of the way helping, but how much is really happening? One question. Second, what is largely happening around the world, and how things are building up? Why does the if that is the case, then why the world really needs to again go back to learn, to compassion and to curiosity, right? And especially the children, the generation next children, or the 21st century children that we talk about, do they really need it, or do we really need it? Who needs it? Yeah. And if we go back to say that schools influence to ask questions, schools influence our ability for thinking or curiosity or critical thinking, or no schools are giving us skills or things like that, that thought isn't also going to serve. Now, just a little bit context building into it. Again, I think, will be able to relate to it. So, this all comes from various observations that even I have around things, and we keep reading into the classrooms. We get to see, hear from parents' lives, from society around us, even our lives sometimes, right? So the kind of things happening, people are just, these are little visuals for you to observe and see whether that happens or not. For the next 1 or 2 minutes, if you have any thoughts or questions coming in, do put them in the chat, but otherwise just observe the pictures and see the kind of world we live in, right? So again, one little visual. What stands out for you in this image? You can just write in the chat. What word comes to you? If you have been a little child here, what's your feeling?
Quarrel disturb child study and behavior, lack of communication, negative vibes,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
arguments may disturb them.
Yes. And this is the real world. It does disturb. Yeah. Okay. So if we move around here,
Stress.
what's up? Yeah. Sorry.
Stress.
Stress. Yeah. Okay. So what do we see in this next image? We do talk about these beautiful virtues of tolerance, patience, kindness. This I gathered when I thought, oh my God, no school in the world teaches students to be less harmonious, or maybe no school says words are good or destruction is great. But or it's good to be bitter. We never do that. But why is it happening? And if it is happening, that there is something that needs to go back to the classroom and to the school, and to be better dealt with, and then the result will show up. Right? So a lot of educators ask why the school really needs to change. We've been doing something brilliant always. Must be, I'm sure 100%. We all try our level best. But we definitely need to own up the reality that the world is, showing up. So even in our society, wherever you stay, you'll see that I do see that there is a less tolerance level. There are street fights, there are quarrels, there are man-made conflicts, a lot of them. So if you observe this picture, everybody is trying to simply the opposite of what's written, the beautiful words. And if you see this, this is something that a lot of our teenagers, that's why I was asking what happens when we grow up. So 8 years, 10 years, 11, 12, 13, lot of classroom issues keep popping in. Now, if children are coming from those areas, this is the situation around, then the families have things like that. And you, those of you who teach senior grades or at least middle school onwards, you would understand how preteens and teenagers are completely emotionally unstable, very disoriented, and all those behaviors show up in the classroom. Never before. We also had issues when we were in classroom, but it wasn't so inflated at that point. Yeah, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, I had a lot of pent up feelings. And I did want to share. I did share, but not that now there is like the technology has also made everybody accessible, yet not very accessible. Right? So I'm not saying that we blame technology, but that's the world around us. That's shifting. So therefore the result is basically somewhere like this. So either we, these pictures really, every time I go through them, they make me feel what's happening. How do we fix what we cannot? We can simply change our own ways of doing things, and that's what our impact lies. Parents feel overwhelmed, teachers feel anxious, children are feeling lost and lonely. Now, with this, we aim of a beautiful classroom. We aim that children, learn to be compassionate and curious with each other. And who really, in this whole image, in the slide here, will change for the little child? Okay, so I would really want you to think about it and simply write that. All right, that's that. This is how the situation is. Now, if we have to switch the situation and change, what is it that we are here to? So, but as educators, we are here to do what? You may just write in the chat what is here, what is it that we are here to do? Is anybody writing in the chat?
Yeah, to give them proper guidance, raise resilient children.
How do we do that? That's quite a humongous task. And alone, I think alone nobody can do that. But we can still try to join hands and see what we can do in that idea. That's a great thought. Thank you for sharing. We'll wait for another maybe one or two more responses. Please do.
Considerate and helpful.
Okay, considerate and helpful. While you do think about it, I would just request somebody, a while ago was talking. Okay, I think we need another minute here. Let's wait.
Start with setting an example. Provide
Hmm.
guidance and counseling.
Hmm. Guidance, counseling, setting example. I really like that one. Setting an example. Absolutely. That means modeling. We learn. We again. That's another fact that I think that we learn a lot by seeing somebody doing it. So modeling has a greater impact on modeling behaviors. So we children even adopt that very quickly, right? So we learn by modeling, and that was the first. example that we had, that eventually if you keep trying to locate people who you would like to model, I 100% guarantee that that happens. I learn by that still till now, right? So we do, while there are other mediums that I have to learn, modeling is one big example that I really, gain a lot from. So I request that we do try to,
Next.
sorry.
Yeah, Taran says match words, thoughts, and action.
Yeah.
Understand them and motivate them accordingly.
Okay, match words, thoughts, and actions. This is, if you know that, this reminds me of a beautiful 3H theory. Maybe I think Gandhiji talked about it. Just the head, heart, and hand. So if that's in alignment, that's a total bliss, right? So that's a great aim, but it also makes us more authentic if we can match what we say, what we do, and what we think. So the head, the heart, and the hand. So if that all is aligned, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. So, but coming to thinking, I'll just take a cue from there. Many times what do we think of children? Let's examine. So I invite you with the few slides here. Let's try to think. What do you think children are? There are these four examples, four analogies, or a metaphor given. What do you think? So they act like a sponge, or they are the funnel, or they are the strainer, or they are the sieve. So strainer is something that so solid portion and the liquid portion we separate. That's a strainer with a little bow. And sieve is a very, very minute, like you sieve your tea, right? So like that. So what do you think children are? Sponge, a funnel, or a strainer, or a sieve? How do they act like while they learn in the classroom? So they absorb. If they have to absorb what they learn, someone had used this word absorb. Engage.
Sponge.
Sponge.
Sponge. All three responses are sponge.
Okay. They act like sponge. Is it is it that they act,
Kavita
or
says they act like sea.
okay, they act like sieve? Kavita, would you like to elaborate on what makes you choose sieve and someone else who said sponge? Is it our expectation of them to be like sponge, or they themselves are like sponge? You can raise hand and share. I think you would have a lot more to talk about. Please do signal raise hand. Use the reaction button over there.
There's mix of both sponge and sieve.
Okay.
They absorb everything. Vivek says they absorb everything.
Even if Vivek, I would request, thanks for sharing and being so open about it. What happens to the sponge after a point of time? I request everyone to think. If that's a sponge, how long can the sponge keep absorbing, absorbing, absorbing? Yeah. So if it is a sponge, it's a very dangerous thing because it'll overflow one day and there's no space for more knowledge to enter, right? So if that's a sponge, so if I keep absorbing, absorbing, and there's no release, how do I make space? Think of a sponge here. What happens? It is filled with a lot of.
Yeah, Kavita says yes, they want to get a deep knowledge on whatever we teach them as per their thoughts.
Mm-hmm. As per their thoughts. All right. So you remind me of this idea that we always try to. It's not that it's a two-way process where I am ready to share and tell or show, but whether the other person is ready to listen or see is what their business is, right? But at the same time, when we do teaching learning transaction, it's a two-party thing, and if the parent comes in, it's a tri-party, right? So then we all would like to be into the system and try to work in better coordination. So thank you, Kavita, for sharing. Nobody has chosen funnel or strainer here. Okay, that's an interesting observation. You may also think like, what is your style, right? So I'll just move on, and we'll see that there's this beautiful article which I can share at a later stage in the session here. There are four types, for those who sit in the presence of the sages. That's what the article says. So if the teacher is a sage on a stage or a guide by the side, that the teacher really needs to also see when you plan, when you're here to learn strategies or think of ways where you can reach out children. Be very mindful and aware of the fact that they might not be responding in a way that you think they should. And that's what happens to a lot of beautiful activities. We do take it to the class, we go, we do it, we come back, and we assume learning has happened. Or either we see, I'm beautifully designing an experience for you, you're not participating. Why? So it could be that some of us are like a sponge, some of us are like a funnel, some of us work like the strainer, right? And some of us basically are the sieve. So if you read here, these four types here, the sponge who soaks up everything, right? So that's what some of us are like. We do soak up, we do absorb. And the funnel is something who takes in from one end and puts it out from the other end. And the strainer is somebody here, it is using wine and retains. These are the exact words coming from that article, so I wrote it here. So the liquid portion comes in and the dregs are the sediments that are left. Some of us are like that. So knowledge is like we filter meaning. So when you give me an experience, you give me a classroom, I'm sitting in a class and I'm learning a concept in biology, maybe heredity, or maybe I'm learning metaphors and idioms. I'm still trying to simply listen or maybe soak up, or maybe I'm just training. Okay, what is it that she's trying to help me learn? Let me put it, and extras I keep it aside. Right? And so exams ke liye I need to study this much, I do it, and then everything okay. No learning. No lifelong learning happening. And maybe the sieve. So when you say the sieve who removes the coarse meal and collects the fine flour. Right? So the knowledge, something that needs to stay with me. If I am like a sieve, I do extract meaning. I do understand. All right. Out of this whole activity, ma'am was trying to help me learn, yeah, how to create a mind map, or maybe how to understand the DNA structure when I'm talking about heredity. So she wants me to, with different case study examples that you give to students nowadays, you're basically trying to help them learn like a sieve who removes everything else but tries to collect the fine knowledge. That's there. Right. So think of these examples here. Think of your students as these little, maybe the styles that they have, right? Their approach to learning, something like that. And then it says, it further elaborates to say that there are four characteristics that we found, we find in children. One is very quick to learn, quick to forget. So then in that case, the article says that his gain is cancelled by the loss. You see a little maths here. Remember these facts because this helps as a teacher to plan, not only assume that I am learning the best experience and I am taking to the class and the child will respond the way I have thought. So please do give child the 50% opportunity that this child also comes back to you. So you need to be open. You need to be absolutely approachable. Lot of students, and I'm sharing this by personal experience, lot of students say that maths teachers always know that children struggle. Why don't they open up a space to ask questions? And I'm not against any maths teacher here. Same with English, it happens. We all learn listening, speaking, reading, writing. But even after schooling, the ability is found, the ability to speak and converse and express is really, really low. And it's a great point to wonder and rather to introspect. So the second stage, if you see, very slow to learn and slow to forget. So loss is cancelled by the gain. Now quick to learn and slow to forget. It says he is a happy lot. Okay, and slow to learn, quick to forget, and very unhappy. So these are certain facts, certain ways you can relate to your own children. If you understand how children learn, if we all educators understand that, fine, like a meal I plan for my family, I know that my son likes to eat this and my daughter would eat something else. My mother will eat something else. So I will adapt as per their choices. How many of us really adapt our lessons to children's choices? How many of us really vary experiences in a lesson? That there's an opportunity to ask, there's an opportunity to simply draw, or there is an opportunity to simply give an example or try to teach to us to a peer, or where is an opportunity to really clarify. So we really need to make that kind of experience for all the styles, so all of them. Just be very aware that all these four styles will be there in the classroom. Now, how do you empower them is one big question, right? So the kind of questions they ask also show us what is it that they are looking at. Somebody will say, "Ma'am, exam. Will this question come in exam? Do I really need to study? Is this important?" Then they study. Okay, are you going to test us and give us marks for this concept? That means it is important and I have to study. And some of the children will always say, okay, we need to learn this. But but how will this help besides exams? Right? Think of one of the appeals that we keep telling children and we keep sounding like exams matter. We say, oh children, you will fail. Come on, do this. CBSC, this happens, this exams happen. That's a very, very shallow appeal in my personal observation and experience. That means that you are making me learn just for the sake of exam. You say that exam is one opportunity for you to showcase what you have learned, and I want you to score good marks because you definitely that will open a lot of gateways for you. Shweta, please do well in your exams. You have done this experience. Why not to do something well? And even if there are certain cases where children are not convinced, simply say that there are certain non negotiables in life. You are in school, you enjoy, you study, set an intention. You don't want to score 90, 80%. Have a dialogue. Decide your path. That kind of conversation really helps. So the next thing that I just want to, put it here, I think I'm looking at time also. How can questions, so if we get back to that whole idea of how if children are like that, if that's their behavior or that's their style, how can questions spark their curiosity? And how can they get them to discover and create new things? So if my curiosity has always driven me to find new avenues and new people, then how can we just let that curiosity flourish in our classrooms so that children are able to learn as per their little curiosities? So we would have in our classroom one big practice that helped was a wonder wall. But now what happens is we have a wonder wall. We will ask children to put questions, but we will never go back to the question. Again, that's a very, very, very incomplete attempt, I would say. That we do collect questions, but we don't make meaning out of those questions. So, one big way that you can jot down could be having a wonder wall and making sure that you have a wonder Wednesday to go back to the wonder wall. Right, so that you can pick up two questions in your zero time, 0 hour, or zero period, or 10 minutes of class teacher period, and you keep addressing those wonder questions. So, one way children should bring a lot of wonder questions, maybe on a post it or on a chart paper, whatever works, more sustainable for you as per the resources, or they put that online wherever they have an opportunity. You take those questions and say, every Wonder Wednesday, we would want children to address each other's question. You may also say that, okay, Shweta, you pick up, it's your turn. You take any two questions from the Wonder Wall, and I want you to come back on Wonder Wednesday to address those two questions. So the topic keeps propelling, and you can set the context to be it could be any topic from your math, science, English, whatever, or it could also be a real life scenario. What's happening around? So my favorite would be to the burning questions or the wonder questions is to be, it making it relevant to the inquiry happening in the class. We have learned about photosynthesis today. Tell me what might be few wonderings that you have. So children write. So do big trees also make their own food when they grow up? Right? Such wonderings keep coming and children do reflect back on the point that the plants always grow because they also need food and they keep growing and eating. What happens to the water? So there was one question I remember the child said that how does how who gives water to tall trees? Yeah, so this also brings to the concept of how they take water from the underground. And what is this whole concept of when I don't know, I'm not just forgetting if anybody can write how water transports capillary action, if I remember clearly, from the roots to the top of the tree. Yeah, so that can open gateway to a lot of learning. and you can just mobilize that. So I'm here just sharing that teacher as a guide, facilitating questions, generating curiosity. So you just simply need to, first we all need to understand that it's 50% that I am doing, and my students are also knowledge creators, right? As this says, shifting paradigm of education where learners are not passive consumers, so they're not sponge actually, but creators. So they try to, their own action has to happen, right? And teachers are the guides in the process of creation, like someone said, as a guide to them. So in this further section, you'll see different pedagogies, or how do children become creators, how teachers can take the role of a guide. Okay, so powerful questions and design based learning on, and even there are many digital technologies that can help. Like you can use a Mentimeter, you can use Padlet, you can try using Flipgrid, right? So that experience also opens avenues for children who are very interested in using technology in the class, very curious. So they can also, wonder question can become something on the Padlet, class Padlet. I hope you have used this tool Padlet. Maybe some other time we can even have a little discussion on digital technologies to be used in the classroom. But Padlets work as a post-it wall, right? So children keep answering. That also happens, right? Even flip grid. So there's a little video that this chemistry teacher basically tries to see that, I always try that we have more our stories in the context to share, but never mind. Let's learn from this other teacher who has tried to spark their desire to learn, and how to guide them in the process. I'm just looking at, let's take a pause. This is happening in the world, various sort of knowledge, either from internet or from teacher. Yes, Vivekanand Pandeji, absolutely. Get a deep knowledge on whatever we teach them. Okay. Yeah, that's the context we are operating in. So teachers can never be knowledge givers now, right? We just need to see that what is it that you have, and collectively we take that knowledge in the class. Like you are all trying to share something. You all have some idea about this. I am nobody who holds everything, right? So we are just holding the space to discuss, unfold, relate, try if you can apply. So the objective is same, that we all need to take away few things that we can apply in our context. But the shape and the form will vary. You will do in your context. I'm in Delhi, you are somewhere else. The schools are different, but the objective is the same. Right, so that's a beautiful example, and I hope are you with us on it? Does it make sense to you what we are sharing? Whichever way you think you can say it. But the teacher here is simply trying, 1 minute, I'll just present my screen. The teacher here is simply trying to connect the dots to help children think and maybe wonder more. Oh my god, the chemistry is all around me. In my classroom, I never learned that, a lot of products that I use on my skin are actually chemicals, right? And lot of medications that my father used to take for diabetes is all chemical, right? And why chemical is being processed like that? So does it really help or it does not help? So all the chemistry formulas were all around. So if you can see that he does share three rules in the process, how do you spark curiosity? So curiosity is there already. I just need to ignite. I just need to spark, and I just need to, as a facilitator, drop a little hint so that the children pick it up and they try to drive it for themselves. Like NEP 2020 says that children, we need to look at lifelong learning, and we also need to look at self-directed learning. Now with that in mind, how do you plan your lesson so that curiosity is sparked, so that mood self motivation happens, and the learning is propelling? So when I say propelling, I mean that children are making connections, and through those wonder Wednesdays and wonderings, they try to keep the learning going. It's not that once the classroom has happened and children have done the test and the class concept is over, they can come back to it. So do watch out the video in your own time when you can, spare few minutes. But here I'm looking at curiosity to say it's a willingness to experience. Right? So curiosity is an experience without looking away, ignoring, or denying. Right? So when you see this magnifying glass, curiosity is using our attention basically. It means that being curious does not mean that I sit in a room and I think how flowers, bloom, how mountains work. It's also to pay my attention to something and to see that, oh, I never looked at it that way. I never realized that flowers have different shapes. I never realized that, mountains actually are formed because of a lot of volcanic eruptions or maybe little few things. Why, therefore, the shape is like that. Therefore, a valley is an inverted V and mountains are like, this ulta V. So like that, we really need to connect. So like when you give your attention to something, you make more meaning out of it. That's what curiosity. So there's a little willingness to say that, oh yeah, I'm willing to understand how does this function. I'm willing to understand how Earth looks like, when you open it up. And then you go to look at a structure or how a cell really looks like. Why does it even look like this? What's the function? So the questions have to keep coming, right? So teacher cannot alone think of all the questions that children might have, but rather let them think and come back to you, and then you can throw it back to all the entire class and say, let's all think together. How can we address this question? Who will do the research and let us know some facts about how cells function? So those are little different examples. Or maybe then you look at it. So I'm just going to show you this visual. You can keep a screenshot. It's basically the recommendations. There's this institution which is called Right Questions Institute, which also says that the questions also have to be right. Yeah. So each and every question, like you frame questions for your question paper, right? So now we say application based question, case based question, thinking questions, right? The hots and the lots, all those that were there. We need to we need to design questions in a way that they simply are without any judgment. They, as you can see, make it safe. Make small groups of students and ask them to write questions as a collective. Promote activities where students can ask questions anonymously. Many of us don't ask because then the name goes and the teacher in the class says, oh, tumhe ye nahi aaya, you don't know this still, or the concept is not clear. Why don't you go back and read it? Well, that's a good way sometimes, but not always. Right? So make sure that you ask the child to read and come back to you. But that coming back does not happen is where the whole thing fizzles out. Second is make it cool. Convince students that good questions lead to cool stuff. Share stories of some questioners, the ones who went against the grain and question why things happen. So when you talk about Copernicus or Galileo and these people who were or people who talked about Earth's shape to be round, they were really confused, always challenged and even present for asking questions. But why? How their questions have really made the world look at things differently. Very, very important. So I'm trying to say that make it cool to ask. If I would have never asked myself that what better can I do with what understanding I have, can I take it to teachers? I wouldn't have been sitting here with you. So that's a self questioning. Who are the people I can approach? Never it would have happened. So make it fun, gamify the process. Maybe next time ever we look at how to gamify the whole thing. How can I make inquiry an engaging part? How can I quickly ask children, okay, a lot of you give me three wonder questions today, or three things that you have learned, two questions that you have, and one reflection that you have about your own learning strategy. So three, two, one. There are a lot of thinking strategies available for asking children to question, right? Then make it rewarding. So if you create a structure of praising and celebrating questions, like that's a great question, that's a wonderful question, that's very thoughtful of you. So rewards like well done, that was a great question, a high five for you, yeah, or drum rolls, anything like that works a long way. Children really feel motivated to ask more questions. I'm not saying reward is the only way, material reward, but rather you can look at intangible rewards. That's also great. They like it. A compliment. One of the ways, it just reminds me, it's not related to curiosity here. Whenever we would want our young children to, you know, be quiet for 10 minutes, we would say, zip your lips, right? So that pretend and play, which they used to play in the kindergarten time, really came handy, even with the 10-year-olds, right? So if the teacher is ready to really try to make that environment, that's where the whole game is. And the fifth strategy here is make it stick. Turn questioning into a habit. so that new neural pathway happens. Now, if you know that the brain really creates connections, it dots, connects. Whatever we are talking here, only things that you will be able to connect to will stay, everything else will just filter out. Right? So, even a small morning activity where students are asked to deduce and write possible questions, that's a great way to build connections. Like I'm saying, introduce Wonder Wednesday to your classroom routine, or introduce wonderful Wednesday. So then in that case it changes to gratitude, compassion. So wonderful Wednesday, we'll also come to that, the same activity, but you can give different meanings to it, right? So creating a culture of questioning in the class is a big thing that really fun. It's very small, looks very trivial, but that's what makes a lot of difference. Yeah, trust me, that works. Try this out. Okay, we'll take a a little 30 seconds break here. Maybe I request everybody to deep breathe, please. Try to simply sit straight wherever you are sitting, because that's very important. We are discussing two topics which are totally not really visible that way, intangible in nature, but very crucial to the whole learning environment in the classroom. So I request everyone to just sit in silence, maybe for 30 seconds. I'll just time it out. Deep breathe. We'll take another three long breath, maybe. Second time and third time as well. With me, please. Let's all inhale and try to allow ourselves a little space here. Even if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's natural. If you're feeling excited, that's even better. Great. If you feel bored, that's where we really just let me know how can we make it better. All right. If you feel connected, that's also beautiful. Okay. So we come back. If you need to drink water, please do drink water. All right. So we switch gears to compassion now. It's a very strong feeling of sympathy. Someone talked about compassion here. It's when children help each other. That's an act of compassion, if we can say. Or also, we say that they share, they support, right? So even when I help out somebody else, even not looking at my own trouble, is an act of compassion. So what compassion really means is a strong feeling of sympathy and sadness also. It's for the suffering or the bad luck of others. If you have heard about Dalai Lama's work, he talks big time about compassion and kindness, because that's what he says, that the world that's what makes the world go around, right? So bad luck of others, a wish to help them, that's compassion. So when if you think of COVID time, very recent example, children out of nowhere, people out of nowhere appeared and they started preparing meals and giving meals to people. So that's that, not only their personal suffering but to elevate the suffering of others, right? So that kind of efforts happened. So some of them did for charity, some of them tried to set up a business or maybe a very low cost charge that they had, but the effort is actually an act of compassion. A lot of our neighbors also came up to help us when everybody was struggling. That's where it's all around us in the classroom. How does it translate? It was we need to look at. But one little question that I want to drop here is, when there are three words: compassion, sympathy, and empathy, right? So how do we differentiate between all three? So if I just would stop presenting for a while, how do we differentiate what is compassion, what is empathy, what is sympathy? Anybody who knows, anyone who can unmute and tell us quickly. We just need one volunteer. It's my voice only who's what I'm listening. Yeah. Anyone who would like to tell us what does empathy, compassion, and sympathy? What's similar? What's different? Okay, you can. Okay, Jaya Priya has raised hand, I think. Can we unmute her?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. Uh, I feel now, in a classroom perspective, if you're talking about empathy, would be just at least once in a while think from the from the side of the child, from their angle too. When a child hesitates to talk to us, just try to think what is stopping the child. That's what. That's one thing I always feel. That's empathy. Then compassion would be show that love and care, or maybe I wouldn't say that's extreme love, or rather give them that support what they are expecting from me, from a teacher, I would say. So that's compassion for me. And I think
Priya, you.
I I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
that's
had
okay.
to mute in between.
That's
And
okay.
then
Yeah.
yes, so I'm sorry, I stopped at compassion and empathy. I
Hmm.
would think I would stop with that.
Okay. So what about sympathy? We still. Thanks for.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So sympathy. Give a. Thank you, Priya, for sharing those examples. Jaya. I do see.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's beautiful. Would you like to also share, like, or anybody else says sympathy? What would sympathy be? Compassion is a feeling of achieving. Sympathy means gratitude. Empathy means support. Okay. So in a classroom, if I am your student and I'm just not, following your instructions, and I'm just simply very upsetting sometimes because I don't complete my work, I don't turn up my assignments, I don't show up for tests. Would you really be any of the three for me? Would you have some sympathy, some empathy, some compassion? Yeah. So like Jaya tried to give an example. Maybe at some point we can. But how all three of them stand together and stay separate as well, right? So one of the examples could be that if a child is not showing up any work, I or maybe has a personal loss at home, or there's a situation that's preventing the child from doing anything, I might stand up and say that, I also faced a loss like that. So kya ho gaya? What's happening? What's a big deal? Come on, show up for your test. So I do feel sorry, but I want you to act out. Right? And empathy is that I'm trying to say that, Jaya, I connect, I relate with what you're saying, and I do feel what you're feeling. So that will be maybe so a teacher's struggle is everywhere. Yeah. A teacher's struggle is genuine. An educator, all schools, all educators need a lot of compassion. And I'm saying this because I do work with UNESCO MGIP, and we do see a lot of global platforms where teachers are struggling. It's real. Schools are changing. Total shift. Not only we have NEP, but everywhere else has a reshift, because the world is suffering, right? We didn't make policies which are human friendly. We made policies which are nations friendly, maybe. And we said that, or maybe we are selling armament to Gaza and Palestine and everywhere, and we don't realize what our actions are causing impact back on us, even the climate change. So from compassion is basically the ability to elevate somebody's suffering. So I stop acting in a manner that basically hurts you, or I do something that basically elevates your suffering, right? Elevates someone's pain. Okay, I act and I say, like children, if kisi ka khan, somebody shared that if there's a food on the floor, someone simply, so that is help, right? That's neither sympathy nor empathy nor compassion, because that's an act of help. I can say that's being kind. I can simply say, oh yeah, somewhere it is sympathy. No, I really say. So just delve with this. There is another video that I'm going to share in the link also. I'm sure I'm not going to spend time into trying to let this run. Do watch out the video and see that a lot many adults behave in a manner. If you see somebody struggling in a classroom, some teacher, nobody goes to help out. Very few people help out. So we are modeling that behavior somewhere, right? So it happens. and that's real. So all I'm trying to say is that we you just watch this beautiful video. I think we have a medium to share links with people, right? Uh, the link here. Okay, this is disabled. We'll try that we gather all the links for you so that you can watch it in your own time. I'll just
Yeah, ma'am. We
quickly.
have a group for
Yeah,
the
you have a
participants,
group.
so we'll
All right.
share.
Okay. Lovely. So do share it there. It's a little. There's this lady Brené Brown. She works on empathy and she talks a lot about compassion, which is self-compassion also, right? So okay, this was questioning, but if I give you this one scenario here, let's understand through this. So this Mr. Jacob, the science teacher, walked in. He saw the students emotionally charged up. Now this is a scenario because of a recent attack on a minority community. Now we live in a society, we have a lot of minorities. India is a beautiful example of diversity. He decided to hear out students instead of teaching that day. He felt that his students needed a safe space to share their feelings and thoughts. What is he doing? Is he empathizing, sympathizing, or trying to be compassionate? It's very important to understand what compassion really would mean. Compassion is it the same, different? Compassion, empathy, and sympathy. Are there any responses? Okay, we are waiting. Please do
Not
think
yet,
around it.
ma'am.
Yeah, no worries. So if you ever get into a situation like this and you want to, how many times do we actually hear them out? And what will hearing even help with? So in this case, he decided to hear out. Is he being compassionate, sympathetic, or he's full of empathy for people? Anybody can please you can raise your hand and we can just have this one person sharing like Jaya shared last time. Please feel free to share.
Lata says he's compassionate.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, yes, maybe. What is the action that makes us feel is compassionate? So compassion has action. Sympathy, just to sum up, sympathy would be I feel your pain. I okay, I agree. This is a painful situation, like somebody has lost a lot of money or a dear one, loved one. I say that, oh yeah, I understand how this happens. I'm sorry this happened to you, this kind of loss. And somebody who has lost a parent or a situation or maybe is being cheated upon, I say, yeah, I feel how it feels at this point. And there's no advice. There's no advice. I just simply say that I feel. But with sympathy, I might have a few advice attached. And with compassion, I am basically doing what I can in my own sphere. So, like this teacher, he decided to hear out his students instead of teaching that day. It's because he felt that students need a safe space to share their feelings and thoughts. And that's one modeling behavior where you or we signal to children that, hey, I'm listening. It's a safe space. You can share what's happening and let me know how we can help each other. So there is no solution here, you see? No solution. The attack was attack. Children were emotionally charged up. Things have happened already. One way could be okay, it happened, just let's study for now. Syllabus has to be completed. Or somebody would have simply said 20 minutes for you to share and 40 minutes for me to teach or 30 minutes for me to teach. Any combination. But he said that he sensed out that way day that okay, this is a big issue. And the teacher said that okay, let me hear out students, let me see. Because that is when we talk about inclusiveness and we say diversity in my classroom and we have children from all faiths and religions and communities. And then one community in the real life is there's an action happening, everybody gets filled with hatred or maybe this kind of communal violence. then why don't we take that as an opportunity to maybe next day come back in a very rational manner to say that yes, human beings sometimes function like that, but that does not mean that it applies to everybody. Right? So teacher's one act of compassion helps children understand, though my teacher cares for me, listens, right? And there's no advice attached. It's just be. So that is an act of compassion here. And I think with that, if there are any questions anybody has, I know we are around time only. This was a little last slide. Any questions that anybody has? I would just stop and leave you with this idea to say that to be finishing things on time, right? It's very important. So compassion is again the ability to be able to take some action to elevate someone's pain. Right? That is compassion. Sympathy is basically when I suggest you five things. Go for yoga, do this, do that. Try, you know, ये अच्छा है, help करेगा. दवाई खा लो, eat medicine. Just sometimes forget it, do meditation. All these things people do without realizing what is actually troubling the other individual. Right? So if you just the biggest gift we can give to each other is to listen maybe. And that's very important. So, with that, I would just like to close and say that please be fully present in your class and try that you believe that children are curious by nature. They are compassionate by, we all are compassionate by nature. And just show that up in your classroom. The biggest modeling is you can show and say, my wonder question today on the wall is this. Who's going to help me know what's happening? Like for my wonder question is that where is patience getting lost these days? Ask children to get examples from real life. Yeah, anything. So that is a great start to a class. Believe me, I have done these things in my classes, and therefore I have the confidence to share it. Not only theory is coming across, and there's no theory rather, because I would one day wonder, we were all kind and compassionate. What has happened suddenly, right? So we need to think about these things, and with that, thank.
I would like to, not a question, something which I always think about. We all teachers go to a class, we have a curriculum plan, we have a lesson plan, and our initially probably we start with this creating anxiety in children, creating topics which brings out the curiosity in children.
Mm,
I feel initially all things are done, but it's not taken, it doesn't move forward because we
mm,
are totally constructive, we is totally strict on to the time, the curriculum, exams,
mm,
portions. This part is never completed. We
mm.
might start by creating curiosity, but it is never continued or maintained or taken
Hmm.
forward by probably if you reach by mid year. If I
Hmm.
ask, I am failing miserably in creating such a classroom, such an environment in my classroom because I'm totally by my curriculum now. Now have my boards
Hmm.
coming by Feb, so my models should begin by now. So there should be a solution for this as well because I've
Hmm.
been hearing about activity based learning and creating curiosity, creating making children think, but it all starts, it gears up, but then it is never continued. Is there a
Hmm.
solution for that? That's what I always wonder about.
Wow. Thank you, Jaya, for asking. You are trying to say sustaining curiosity or continued
Exactly,
curiosity.
exactly, that would be the right way of putting it.
Yeah, so if you say that sustaining curiosity, whenever whosoever fills the feedback form can please write the question also. When you say sustaining curiosity, that would mean it requires a constant effort from teacher's side. Yes, we do struggle, we do have a curriculum, and we do need to see that children respond. The only solution that I would say that lies through practice also is that the pedagogy becomes such that my hook, my provocation does not end with the first beginning of the concept. I keep embedding a few wonderings in the concept that, participatory learning, if again that's a theory, I would say. One model, if I give you that, that would be that Flip learning, if you try to say that, Shweta, I would request you, ye concept we are going to read the next time. I would want my class to read the concept and just come back. So just read and come back. I'm sure initially many students will not read. So many will not read. But setting some agreements, one helps. Second, sticking on to agreement as a teacher is where we sometimes, I also compromised many times because there were tests and there were all so many other things, syllabus, you rightly said. But only space was, how can I structure my class so that the classroom has me talking? Like for instance, if you have a 50 minutes class or a 40 minutes class, can we park last 10 minutes for questions and concept clarity or one practice of question every class? Okay, I just end 10 minutes before. I collect questions. I give one question to consolidate learning. Now, 10 minutes gone out of 50, 40 minutes left. I say I need to cover this concept in 20 minutes. Utna, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay, so 20 minutes I need to cover. Now, to finish this in 20 minutes, what is it that I need to do? Can I take a video? Can I try to give them a reading material? Can I try to, create a questionnaire so that they read and come with it so that it's squeezed? I'm not starting all over again. I have a background, some base. Are you with me, Jaya? Does that make sense to you? So 10 minutes of my last time, then 20 minutes of me talking and we elaborating on the concept. Then previously first 15, so 30 minutes gone. Now 5 minutes I give them to just quickly revisit, recap the previous concept that has happened. And just let me know, have you all read it? Are we good to start? And assume that all of us have done some reading about it, right? So silently give me some time to say that you have read, and those of us who have not read, okay, let's be here in this group. Those of us who have read, let's be here in this group, right? So two groups you create, and you try that this group who has read already, you need to now think about the materials that you need to be preparing if they are ready. So you will say that if you are ready, I want you to do these 10 things, discuss with each other, task card, so that material is ready. Those who have not read, they need to read it there with you in the class. So again, differentiation is happening. Some children see out of 40, 30, 50, I say, "Nahi, this is not the way that all of them are not ready." We need to also filter out and plan for different people, different folks and different strokes. But we assume that everybody is at the same stage. Some are expert learners, some are really below the curve, which is okay. So does that help, Jaya? So you complete your portion whenever you see number of classes. This is how I help devised my classes. I would take English and sometimes inquiry, expeditionary learning. If you are aware of that format, we would plan our classes like that. And eventually students struggle to keep up with the time, but after that it pays up beautifully. They realize that ma'am is not compromising on this. She wants us to read. She sends reminders if I don't read. Yeah. So I know that is an extra effort and extra prep time. Therefore, things sometimes don't translate. But once you do for 1 year, CBSE is beautiful. NCRT is lovely. They don't change syllabus every time. They take years to change syllabus. So that works as an advantage, right? So you can experiment with the pedagogy. Yeah, if
Thank you.
that helps. Yeah,
Thank you,
most
ma'am, for
welcome.
that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Why they are not focused, even we use all types of teaching learning material. So, one is the expectation that everybody will be focusing. They would not. Trust that. In this session here, I'm saying we are adults here, but I cannot really assume that everybody is paying attention. Yes, Preeti, she's saying every child comes with their own baggage. Yes. So every time, how many of us really check in with the class that how are you feeling this time? Are you ready? Can I have your do I have your permission to begin? Will you set an intention that you will study? Why did we do intention setting in the beginning? That was just one effort from my side to ensure that you all are trying to listen. At least if not 100%, maybe 10%. It set an intention and then towards the end go back to say what did we learn today that makes you know what the child really said in the beginning. So please realize that children stay with us for one big year, sometimes repeatedly. It would be great, very handy if you know them, if you understand their styles, if you understand their struggles, if you're approachable, then they really show up. So like some of us take longer to speak to others, some of us are quick, right? That's diversity. They will be like that. And focus and attention is, if you can, I would say, just let's all try every morning. Let's try to simply do 5 minutes of attention practice, because a lot of distraction is around, right? So in a world of, we are living in a world of distractions. Expecting focus is a very very pricey thing. But if you try to bring that in the classroom and every morning spend 2 minutes to say that let's try to focus, let's try to practice attention. I want you to practice. There are tricks. Yeah. So tricks. My mother made me light up a candle and focus on the flame and develop focus. I did that. Or a dot. Right? Try that we do. They are distracted. And please don't assume that they will focus because I have prepared a lot of materials. Please don't assume. That's what I would say. That will make us feel less anxious and less, devastated that I planned a beautiful activity. Not everybody is focused. Try to reach out differently. That's what I would say. Thank you so much.